So this morning I'm going to go ahead and get started with something that I typed up this morning. In 1920, an international treaty was signed adopting the Balfour Declaration, giving the entire British mandate for Palestine, quote unquote, as a homeland for the Jews. Only months later, the blood-libeling Christian British Empire violated the treaty by ripping apart the Holy Land and giving most of it to the Arabs, Israel's enemies. In doing so, the Christian British Empire violated the New Covenant as written in Jeremiah 31, verse 31 through 34, Hebrews 8, verse 8 through 12, and Romans 11, verse 25 through 28. When they reneged on the Balfour, that's when they reneged on the Balfour Declaration. Joel, in chapter 3, prophesied about this event and warned of Judgment Day coming to the Gentile violators. On March 23, 1923, the Christian nations of the British and French both violated the New Covenant yet again by partitioning the Golan Heights to the French mandate, later to be given to Syria. On November 29th, 1947, the entire United Nations joined the rebellion against the New Covenant by adopting the British partition plan. On June 22, 2019, the USA, via the Trump administration, released the economic portion of the plan titled Peace to Prosperity. This was the beginning of yet another violation of the New Covenant. The political portion was released in late January 2020. This plan would give a portion of East Jerusalem, called Abu Dis, to the Arabs as the capital of Fakistan, and the Temple Mount would remain in Arab hands. Basically, the status quo would remain. Well, the status quo, folks, is the violation of the New Covenant. That is what the definition of the status quo is. The Israelis, sensing this would be the best deal they could ever hope for from the Gentiles, fell upon the stumbling block thrown at them by the United States of America, causing the Israelis to be in danger of violating the New Covenant themselves by immediately signaling agreement to the plan. Both Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his current new partner, I can't even remember the guy's name right now, but you'll find out about it soon enough. Both expressed their approval, you see, when they were in Washington, D.C. to hear or read about this peace plan of the century. Although Israel has not signed it yet. Immediately after or during, the political portion of the peace plan was released, probably more like during. Like a Pandora's box, a scourge of pestilence was opened up on the world from China. Here's how it went down. On December 31st, last year on the Roman calendar, China alerted the World Health Organization to several cases of unusual pneumonia in Wuhan, a port city of 11 million people in the central Hubei province. The virus was unknown. Several of those infected worked at the city's Huanan seafood wholesale market, which was shut down on January the 1st. As health experts worked to identify the virus amid growing alarm, the number of infections exceeded 40. On January 5th, Chinese officials ruled out the possibility that this was a reoccurrence of the severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS virus, an illness originated in China and killed more than 770 people worldwide in 2002 to 2003. On January 7th, officials announced that they had identified a new virus, according to the World Health Organization. The novel virus was named 2019-nCoV and was identified as belonging to the coronavirus family, just like most of the common colds. Folks, you need to stop and think about that for a minute. I'll continue. Which includes SARS and the common cold. On January 11th, China announced its first death from the virus, a 61-year-old man who had purchased goods from the seafood market. Treatment did not improve his symptoms after he was admitted to the hospital, and he died of heart failure on the evening of January the 9th. On January 13th, the World Health Organization reported a case in Thailand, the first outside of China, in a woman who had arrived from Wuhan. On January 16th, Japan's health ministry reported a confirmed case in a man who had also visited Wuhan. On January 17th, a second death was reported in Wuhan. Health authorities in the U.S. announced that 3 airports would start screening passengers arriving from the city. Authorities in the United States, Nepal, France, Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, Vietnam, and Taiwan confirmed cases over the following days. What happened to my, I'll continue, in the following days. So my point was here to write this up is the timeline. Late January was the release of the final portion of Donald Trump's peace plan of the century. Now some might say, well, Henry, this virus started before the peace plan of the century was released. Au contraire, folks. The first portion of the peace plan of the century was released several months prior. Now, as soon as the world experiences tribulation, as we obviously will see what is going on right now, what happens? What does the world do? Blood libel? Let me show you something, folks. On Al Jeminer, posted yesterday. Italian artist Giovanni Gasparo revives anti-Semitic blood libel with graphic painting of medieval child martyr. An Italian painter whose work had been honored by the Catholic Church. Yes, he's a stalwart in the Catholic Church, don't you know? For its devoutly Christian themes and masterful Baroque style, unveiled his latest canvas this week, a grotesque anti-Semitic depiction of hook-nosed Jews engaged in the ritual murder of a terrified Christian infant. This is how you're going to treat the Jews. If you do this to the Jews, you're doing it to Israel's Moshiach. After all, he is a Jew of Jews. And if the Jews have hook noses, then so does he. Giovanni Gasparo, an artist based at the Adriatic port city of Bari, uploaded images of the 7-foot by 5-foot paintings that revived the anti-Semitic blood libel of medieval times on his Facebook page on Tuesday. You filthy, foul, devilish subhuman, Giovanni. The painting is replete with the basest anti-Semitic tropes, is instantly apparent. Titled The Martyrdom of Saint Simon of Trent, in accordance with the Jewish ritual murder. It shows an infant boy surrounded by a crowd of sinister Jewish men variously wearing side curls and religious items, who strangled him, cut him open, and drained his blood. Gasparo's brush purposively accentuates the stereotypes of classic anti-Semitism: large hook noses, yellow uneven teeth, blood-stained fingers, and visceral pleasure at forcing a non-Jewish child to suffer in a manner reminiscent of, as they say, as the Romans say, Jesus on the cross. As the child in the painting weeps for fear, the Jewish figures cackle and laugh with manic energy. The historical event in which Gasparo's painting is based occurred March 21st, 1475, when the disappearance of a 2-year-old child named Simon in the northern city of Italy of Trento sparked one of the most notorious episodes in the 900-year history of the blood libel. In other words, this fellow wants to restart the whole process again. Well, things are going to be different this time, folks. Way different. When the body of the little boy was discovered later that week, according to local rumor, in the cellar of a Jewish man named Samuel, a storm of anti-Jewish fanaticism erupted during the Christian holiday of Easter. The entire Jewish community was arrested and forced to confess under torture to having murdered Simon in a bloody ritual, with 15 of its leaders burned at the stake. In later centuries, Simon was regarded as a martyr by the Catholic Church. That status was removed by Pope Paul VI in 1965 when the Vatican issued Nostra Aetate, its historic repudiation of anti-Semitism and the deicide charge that held the Jews collectively responsible for the deaths of so-called Jesus at the hand of the Roman Empire. An artist who concentrates primarily on devotional Christian themes, the 36-year-old Gasparo has been hailed by some art critics for his technical brilliance as well as choice of figurative painting over more modern forms of artistic expression. But with this latest work, Gasparo seems determined to revive the tradition of Christian anti-Semitism as well, writing about the blood libel, painting in the Italian Jewish publication Mosaico on Thursday. The Italian Jewish commentator Esther Moscati noted Gasparo's dedication to sacred art with a peculiar taste for the macabre and the grotesque. Lots of flesh and lots of blood. Moscati concluded with the observation that Gasparo is now directing his mastery of painting to a work that is full of anti-Jewish hatred, as if he felt a need at a time when the fake news is going crazy to dust off similar fake news from the dark and gloomy past. Gasparo has exhibited his work in Italy and other countries for more than 20 years. His career highlights have included solo exhibitions in Paris in 2009 and at Venice in 2011. All right, I think I'm just about done. Also in 2011, Gasparo was commissioned by the Catholic Archdiocese of Italy's L'Aquila region to restore a medieval basilica that had been badly damaged in an earthquake in 2013. He was awarded Italy's prestigious Pio Alfarano Prize for Young and Talented Artists. So this is how the Italians respond to a plague. Well, maybe the Italians want another one. Maybe the Italians are asking for this earthquake that back in that happened back in the day in the Archdiocese of Italy's L'Aquila region. Oh, maybe they want another earthquake to absolutely destroy the region. Is that what they're asking for? I don't know. You tell me. So, here's a warning to you Christians. You are in violation of the new covenant. What is the new covenant? Let's go find out, shall we? Oh, hold on. We'll go to Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34. Behold, the days come, saith not the Lord, Jehovah. There it is, right there in front of your face. He's the Father. That I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. So that means both houses of Israel will be returned back home, including the ones that were declared Gentile, like me. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they broke, even though I was a husband unto them, saith Jehovah. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days. After what days? After the tribulation upon Israel is over, saith Jehovah. I will put my Torah in their inward parts and write it in their hearts. I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Jehovah, for they all shall know me, from the least unto the greatest of them, saith Jehovah. For I will forgive their iniquity, and will remember their sins no more. That is the new covenant. But how can he cause the new covenant to go in effect when they are still scattered all over the world? If you read the rest of Jeremiah 31, you will plainly see. At that time, says Jehovah, I will be the Elohim to all the tribes of Israel, and they shall be my people. Those who are escaped the sword will find grace back in the wilderness, even Israel. They will all come back to the wilderness of Israel, the place I caused them to rest. And Jehovah has appeared of old, many times, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and said to them, I have loved with you the everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness, I will cause you to come back. I will drag you back. I want to build you again, and you will be built. O Virgin of Israel, you shall be once again adorned with your tabrets and go forth in the dances of them that make merry. You shall again plant vines on the mountains of Samaria, even though Donald Trump says no. Even though the UN says no. Even though the man in Italy at the Vatican says no. Even though Great Britain said no. All of Samaria will go back to the house of Israel. The planters will plant there again. Okay? Verse 7, For thus saith Jehovah, Sing with gladness for Jacob, and shout among the head of the nations. Publish it. So I'm publishing it, folks. I'm saying it out loud. It's going to happen, and there's nothing that you blood libelers can do to stop it. Praise and say, Jehovah, save your people, the remnant of Israel. So I'm saying loud and clear for the whole world to hear. Jehovah, save your people, the remnant of Israel. I will bring them from the north and gather them from the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea and the coastlands of the entire earth. And with them the blind and the lame, and the woman and child, and her that travails with child, together a great company shall return there. You see, you have to read all of Jeremiah 31 to understand what the new covenant is. And if you try, remove a portion of the new covenant, if you try to remove any portion of the new covenant from Israel, the whole new covenant will be removed from you. Any rejection of one small point of the new covenant is a rejection of the entire new covenant, O Gentile. Hear the word, that's verse 10. Hear the word of Jehovah, you Gentiles, you Goey. Declare it to the coastlands far away and say, he that scattered Israel will gather him again and will keep him like a shepherd does his flock, because Jehovah hath redeemed Israel and has ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than Jacob. They will come and they will sing at the height of Zion, Jerusalem, East Jerusalem. Every square inch of East Jerusalem will belong to Jacob. And they will flow together in the goodness of Jehovah, for the wheat and for wine and for oil and for the young of the flock and the herd, and their soul shall be as a watered garden, and they will never see sorrow again. Now, read the rest of the chapter. So I still have more to go over here. But now that you know what the new covenant is, and now that you know you cannot deviate not from a single solitary square inch of that new covenant, listen to me. Once again, so warning to Christians, you are in violation of the new covenant. If you support a government that violates the new covenant, do not bother to eat unleavened bread or drink wine during Pesach or Passover. Don't even pretend to do it on your pagan holiday, Easter. Because if you do, you will be eating and drinking damnation to yourselves. Corinthians 11, verse 23. For I have received of the Moshiach that which I also delivered unto you, that Yehoshua hach Moshiach, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread, verse 24. And when he gave thanks, he broke it and said, take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. After this, in the same manner, he also took the cup in which he had supped, saying, this is the cup. This cup is the new covenant in my blood. This you do as oft as you drink of it in remembrance of me. Verse 26, for as often as you eat this bread and drink of this cup, you do show Moshiach's death till he come. Verse 27, wherefore, whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of Moshiach unworthily. If you don't recognize his blood as the new covenant, then you drink it unworthily. If you are in any way affiliated to a government that has violated the new covenant, then you also are a violator of the new covenant. Shall be guilty of the body and the blood of Moshiach. Folks, listen very carefully, because Paul has something to say that applies to today, right now. Verse 28, but let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. For he that eats and drinks unworthily, not discerning, he drinks damnation to himself, not discerning Moshiach's body. Verse 30, and here you go, folks. Get ready. Here's your answer. This is the reason that many of you are weak and sick, and many have died. Now, the rest of this I have only received from one source. I am not a scientist, have not been able to verify, but I do understand the concept here. I do understand that colds cannot be cured with a vaccine, and most common colds are coronaviruses. And the reason why they cannot be cured with a vaccine is because they mutate quickly. COVID-19 is 35 kilobase in size, near 60 RNA pieces total. Influenza is typically 12 kilobase. The larger a virus is, the more likely for mutation to occur. COVID-19 at 35 kilobase is 3 times as likely to mutate as influenza, so roughly 1 mutation per 33 infected plus gain of function dominant abilities means that you will not see human immunity against this virus. It is not possible. You may be immune to one strain, but at the current confirmed cases, 500K divided by 333 equals rough amount of strains circulating. You will not be immune to these. You will only be immune to the one you were affected by. President Trump, instead of calling a day of prayer, when was it, last Sunday, as you said, maybe you should have confessed that you did wrong to Israel by throwing a stumbling block in front of Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz when you invited them to the White House coercing them to verbally agree to your stumbling block. You should have known better. Now, people are dying in Israel too. To the Trump administration, every one of those deaths just might be on you. And you may or may not escape this first plague, but will you escape the second one?